Park Commission to order at 7 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Rayfield, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Moran is here. Mr. Folbaum? Here. Mr. Van Oz?
Here.
Mr. Mans?
Here.
Mr. Stoll?
Here.
Mr. Rayfield?
Here.
We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the additions or deletions to the agenda.
Move approval as submitted.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Rayfield, support by Mr. Folbaum to approve the agenda as submitted. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 16, 2014.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Van Oz.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Mans to approve the minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 5 is the financial report for July 2014. And in your packet was the financial report that shows our budget of $831,160 for our revenue. And for our revenue year to date, we've spent $314,700, which is 37% of our budget. Our expenditures are budgeted at $831,160. And our year-to-date expenditures are $377,378, which is 45% of our budget, and we are currently 33% through our fiscal year. Our capital reserves as of the end of July are $603,934, and our past due rent summary as of August 12th is $4,831, and our pending legal action settlement plan is $8,749. With that, Mike, is there anything you want to point out on the budget for us?
Just wanted to walk through, Mr. Chair, some of the expenditures we've had, because there are several expenditures right now that are showing us over budget, but we're going to do some budget adjustments for. These mainly regard to the east side of Hangar 1 and some runway emergency repairs that the state will reimburse us for. So if we go to, let's see, the 5th page in our packet here, and go to expenditures on the airport side. I've highlighted 3 accounts. The first is professional services, and our total there is $11,540. That's the engineering fees we've accrued so far on the east side of Hangar 1 project, so that'll be a budget adjustment. It won't show on our current budget here. It'll come out of our retained earnings. The second line item in there is the maintenance runways, which to date we're up to $18,798, and that will get reimbursed to us by the state MDOT Aeronautics at a 90% share. Will be responsible for 10% of the expenditures there. We plan on seeing that money in November. The one issue we have with the state is they do 2 transfers a year. One's in August and one is in November, but they're only willing to do 1 transfer for the reimbursement. So if we have repairs now, we could have gotten reimbursed at the end of August, but then we would have to wait till next August for any further repairs this year. So I decided to wait till November so we can get all of our money and it won't mess up our current budget year, or current fiscal year. The third line item there is the reserve for capital improvements. You can see $42,500 has come out of that account right now. That's basically where we're applying the bills we're paying for the east side of Hangar 1 project. That payment right there is half of the roofing project that we paid to Holbrooks Roofing. So those 3 items together equal $72,839. Once those are taken out of our retained earnings and out of the current budget fiscal year, or the adjustments made, our year-to-date expenditures will be $304,538, or 36.64%, showing us currently in budget.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody have any questions or comments for Mike?
I just had, Mike, you had Holbrook Roofing do some additional repairs to Hangar 1.
We did. We had to do additional repairs on the top roof of Hangar 1, which was done back in the late 90s, I believe. It was part of a township project. It was probably a 10 by 20 foot area that had peeled back. It was a TPO membrane roof, similar to what we're putting up there now. Had peeled back in a storm at some time and been looked like it had been repaired, but not properly. So we went ahead and repaired that properly. That'll come out of our normal budget. That's just
Did you look at perhaps how much was that?
I don't recall the exact amount. If I remember right, it was somewhere around $2,000.
Okay. Now, I would think about insurance, but probably wouldn't be us to do that. Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions on the July 2014 budget?
Yeah, I have a question about the
Mr. Stoll.
past due. Are we still getting money from Dance Girls Eel?
So far to date, we've only collected one payment through the collection agency we're using. I've been putting pressure on them after they make several attempts and document that they can take a legal route with them. So I think that is coming soon. We hope to have that in the next month or two, the legal route. But no, we're not currently getting any other payments through them. We received one, which was $500.
How about with Rush Fire Brick? Anything new there, Mike?
Nothing to add there.
And Mike, just review the outstanding balance of Dance Grows Eel for us.
The total amount, $5,275.35. Basically, it was just past due from not paying for the couple of previous months before the tenant vacated the property.
Is it 3 months rent? Do you know? Do you happen to remember?
I believe it was 3 months rent plus late fees.
And towards that, they've made one payment of $500.
Correct.
And are they out of business?
Nope, they are currently in business on the island.
So they just left and went and relocated somewhere else on the island?
Correct.
Near Hungry Howie's.
On Macomb Street.
Well, that's a shame that they've left us with a bill of $5,200.
Bad business.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fulbaum, supported by Mr. Rathel to receive and file the July 2014 financial report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, which is our manager's report. 6A is the east side of Hangar 1 project update. Mike?
In your packets here, you'll have a financial breakdown of where the project is currently at. First line item there is the environmental abatement. That price that you see is the contract that we're in process of accepting, or has been accepted with Rand Environmental. It's the $57,390. We're currently waiting on a timeline from them. We kind of have a soft one right now. It looks like in the next couple of weeks will be our kickoff. We have a couple of items through the Island Fest committee that need to be moved out of the building before we can start cleaning that up. So it's just kind of lining things up for the next couple of weeks, prepping the building for the deep cleaning and abatement of all the leftover materials. To date, the masonry and the roof are completed. Ram Construction did the masonry, and I was very happy with the outcome of that. The final bill, we did have some additional work. We knew we were going to need to waterproof the utility pits that are currently in there. So the final bill with them was $79,247. The roof we did do the add-on for. We have a 20-year warranty TPO membrane roof on there now, and that's the total amount for that. We did have, there were 2 small leaks once the roof was completed. We traced it back to some window caulking on the windows above the roof that were leaking into the building, and then there was one spot that was missed on an I-beam. The contractor was very prompt on coming back out and repairing those. We haven't really had a good rain since those 2 spots were repaired, but tomorrow looks like it'll be a rainy day and we can test it out again and see. So those 2 were noted after our heavy 6-inch rain. The retained earnings expense you see there, there's our brownfield contribution, which will cover the environmental abatement. So to date, we're at $164,247. Below that's our engineering and project management cost to Rains. It's at $17,871. And then at the bottom is the 2 window estimates that we've currently got. The first contractor had it at $69,000 for the windows, and JS Vig had it at $58,000 for the windows. We've currently put the specs together. It is in with the engineer for review. I've put the bid specs together, and he's reviewing it, and then I'll publish it, and we'll go out for bids. The two types of windows I asked for were to match similar to what we have here at Township Hall. I asked for one in aluminum and one in vinyl, just so we can compare prices on that. And then the option was to have every third window open, just so we can kind of get all the prices together and compare everything. And then the bottom number there, the retained earnings expense, I took the estimate from the higher number of the contractor and minus the abatement with our brownfield contribution. So you can see that the $262,000 is what we would be at after the windows and everything.
Mike, the engineering and project management number of 17, is that all Rains?
That's all Rains, correct.
Okay.
So right now, for completion, we need to finish the environmental abatement with RAND, which we're on schedule for. We just need to get the final timeline from them. We're waiting to go out for bids and get the numbers back for the windows. The only other issue we're facing right now is if you turn to the second page in this packet, you can see these utility pits. There used to be two small sub pits where utilities in them. We moved electrical up and out of the pits. The other pit has water and some piping moving through it. We're running into a bit of an issue with these pits because they're kind of reverse engineered where it grades into the building, into the pits, and then the pits had a floor drain in the bottom and hardwired in sump pumps to pump it out into the sewer system. The sump pumps haven't worked in probably 10 or 15 years, so what we've been doing is just manually pumping them out once in a while. Now, obviously, we want the building to be tenantable, so what we've looked at is our first thought was just to fill the pits in and cap the sewer lines, but what we've discovered is that the sewer line does run through that, so we couldn't cap it. So the engineers are reviewing that right now. It seems like currently the easiest option may be just to hardwire new sump pumps into it and redo the concrete going down into here. I can show you the diagram of our sewer line here. Is that currently on your streets?
Yep.
Okay. So you can see this is the east side of Hangar 1 right here. These two circles are our pits that we're seeing. There's two sewer lines that feed into the system right here, so we're not able to cap these two without cutting these off. So it seems like the easiest option will be to re-hardwire in new sumps. But again, I'm waiting for the engineers to review that and make a final decision.
Those are storm drains?
Correct.
And then that actually goes out to midfield and then connects to
That goes out to the
another
creek.
drain out to Frenchman Creek?
Correct.
Is it-
Correct. It'll go through the oil separator. You can zoom out here and see it.
What does capping have to do with the flow of water through the drains?
If we were going to fill, they're currently in little pits. If we were to cap it and fill the pit in, it would restrict the flow of water moving in from the other storm drains in the area. And then it would back up also into that system, right? With nothing moving, with the sumps not working, that pit would fill up. And it's either going to back up into whatever we fill the pit with, gravel or concrete, and come out of the top with nothing moving it out into the sewer system.
I don't understand. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if everybody in the commission is aware, but we had some pretty severe drainage problems along Rucker Road, as you recall, where the house is along Rucker Rear. And so the DPS Commission and the Drain Commission took it upon themselves to attack that problem, very successfully, I might add. But one of the things it included was cleaning all the drains underneath the airport, running all the way out to Frenchman's Creek and the catch basins and stuff. And after 30, 35 years or however long they'd been in there, we took some things out of there you wouldn't believe, but it actually has made a significant difference in those homes in the back of Rucker, but that all came out of the drain fund.
Mr. Chair, just a comment. I think I agree with the two things that you just said. One is just the sump, so if the engineering report comes back, put a new pump in there and be done with that, and then we could figure out how to visually handle that area. And then what Ted just said is, I don't like to cap anything here at the airport. water goes all over the place, and we get water drained from off airport, come in here, and it moves pretty good, and I don't want to disrupt that flow.
That's a good idea.
So you'll give us an update at our next meeting, Mike, as to how that's being handled.
Will do. The only other update I have on east side of Hangar 1 is I did receive a letter or an email from Eric Ranka, the police commission liaison, asking basically for our commission and myself to come back to him and the police commission with a ready for occupancy date, is what he termed it. So I know Mr. Van Oss and I have had some discussion on that. We can put a soft date on it, or we were discussing telling them that basically the building could be ready now. By the time they start planning and getting their things in line, we'd be ready, or the building would be ready for them to occupy it.
You can give an occupancy date of the day they complete the environmental. From that point on, nothing else being done to that building would affect them. In fact, they probably would want some input as to the window design and the door design on that end of the building, on that quarter of the building, because that's where gun range is going to be, and I would assume they would participate in that.
And the environmental is expected to take how long, Mike?
About 2 weeks' time to complete.
Anything else on the east side of Hangar 1?
I have a question.
Mr. Rathel.
Mike, what about the sailmaker? Is he still in the picture?
Correct. We are in the process of negotiating with the sailmaker. He's displayed a lot of interest in the building, upstairs in particular, potentially the whole building. Chase and I have been working together. We've been putting a memorandum of understanding together for the sailmaker. We're going to send it. We've sent it to him, and we're going to start negotiating some feedback. We've been looking at kind of the going rate in the market, what we're charging currently in our Commerce Park and surrounding buildings. So we're starting to get some numbers and framework together with the sailmaker, but he's still very interested.
So he could be interested in both the first floor and second floor?
Correct.
The entire east side?
Correct.
So we really need to explore that then, right?
Correct.
Anything else on east side of Hangar 1? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6B, which is the FBO update. Mike?
I just want to update the commission. I did receive a letter of intent from a current tenant we have here on the field who's interested in potentially starting up an FBO here. We've started negotiations. I am currently waiting. The tenant went away on vacation for a little while, so we're waiting for him to come back, and I asked him to group some thoughts together on get us more of a structured business plan for our review. So I hope to have something soon here, and we have an action item here on kind of how we're going to fill the gap in the meantime while we negotiate.
Keep us updated how that goes, obviously.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to add just one more item to my manager's report here. I just wanted to follow up with the commission. We've had two of our annual summer events over the last couple of weekends. We had a fast track car event it was a Sunday, August 3rd, and our annual Michigan Jets event, which was August 7th through the 10th. I just want to make the commission aware we have had some resident complaints in the area. Obviously, the airport wants to be a good neighbor, so we're going to review these two events with the Airport Advisory Committee and come back with a recommendation on how we do that for next year.
The complaints were noise?
Noise complaints, yep, correct.
And was it because it was later in the day?
The Sunday event was supposed to end at 5 o'clock. They pre-sell car rides on that one, and they overbooked. So our options were either to extend the event for a couple hours or send some paying customers home. We allowed them to extend for about an hour and a half past their time frame, which they'll get billed for. The Michigan Jets event we've held every year. I think this is our 13th year doing that event. I've never received noise complaints from that one. The only thing I can think of is this was the most pilots they've ever had, so there were more planes in the air flying, but probably by a number of about 5. So there was a little more traffic going on, but I'm not sure why that event in particular. We had about 2 or 3 noise complaints on that event.
And what time did that end?
That normally that's a Thursday through Sunday event. They normally fly from about 9 in the morning until dusk.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
Nope, we'll be getting with the advisory committee, review these two events, and hopefully come back with a recommendation for next year, because the airport likes to keep our neighbors happy.
What's the township ordinance on noise? Is there a curfew in which you have to stop?
I believe it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I'd have to review them. I don't know those off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, which is our action items. Item 7A is the hiring of a part-time FBO employee. And we have a resolution in front of us that reads, based upon the recommendation of the airport manager and the Airport Advisory Committee, the Airport Commerce Park Commission approves retaining Debbie Weber full-time until October 31st.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Van Oz,
Support.
support by Mr. Ratho. Under discussion, Mike, do you want to give us a little background?
Millennium Aviation, our previous FBO, officially ceased operation on June 27th. The Airport Advisory Committee met together June 18th. In that meeting, we reviewed our current options, and the outcome of the meeting was we recommended that Debbie be retained, who was a previous FBO employee and knows the airport very well, be retained until the end of October. This is basically to buy us some time while we negotiate with potential FBOs and try to recruit some FBOs and keep the airport moving and providing fuel and other services like car rental and stuff, so we don't get a bad reputation, and our customers can receive the usual attention they're used to. So we're talking about until October 31st would be the cutoff date when we'll reevaluate. It'll be $10 an hour, basically a 9 to 5, 40-hour-a-week job. The issue we run into with that is we can only retain part-time employees for 40 hours a week for a 4-month maximum until we have to start offering them benefits and retirement and all the other things that would go onto the airport. Basically, over the term of a 12-month year, it has to equal 30 hours a week or less before we get into any issues with that. So that's what we're proposing, is basically until October 31st, we retain Debbie and have her keep providing services at the airport. And then once that time comes, once we get to October 31st, if we don't have an FBO lined up, we'll have to meet again and revisit it and make another decision.
But you're currently talking to one possible FBO.
Correct. And if you flip onto the second page of this action item, I just put a little bit of a financial snapshot together. With retaining Debbie as our current employee at the $10 an hour is what this is calculated at. When the FBO was in business, we had a setup with them. We would pay them a flowage fee for fuel that they provided to incoming customers. That was basically $10,500 a year, $875 a month. And then we also were paying janitorial services of $7,200 a year for their. With Debbie working, paying her $10 an hour, not having to pay the flowage fee to Millennium Aviation, and I have retained her, and she's cleaning the restrooms and common areas for us as well. It's basically a loss of $125 a month, so we're pretty close to a break even with this setup, and financially I think it's pretty sound.
Any comments or questions on we have a motion to hiring of a part-time FBO employee. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ratho.
This is a needed item. I think we need to keep that FBO building or the facility over there active with people, and this is a good way for us to do it. Still provide fuel services for those that don't want to pump them themselves and maintain an FBO. So I think it's a good thing that we're doing here.
Seems like it's a very cost-effective way to do it, too.
One question.
Mr. Fulvon.
The on-call for the weekend, Mike, what happens if she is on call and we go over the 40 hours? Is that going to affect the...
We could swap time, and she was open to that. So if she's got to come in on a Saturday at 10 o'clock, there will be a call-out fee that we're assessing to the pilot or the aircraft coming in, and then we'll pay her for that time. We've set up a cost structure for that, and then we can swap time so it equals the 40 hours.
Thank you.
Anything else? Got a motion by Mr. Van Oz, supported by Mr. Ratho. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 7B is the disposal of abandoned aircraft recommendation. And we have a resolution before us that reads, based on the recommendation from the airport manager, the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby recommends to the Groseal Township Board the disposal of the abandoned aircraft, which is a McClary Walter W. Quickie that currently resides in T Hangar A12. I'll entertain a motion and then under discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rathel,
Second.
supported by Mr. Stoll. Under discussion. Mike, reading the background here, this has been in that hangar for 2 years now, and it seems like there's been a number of attempts to reach the owner without success.
Correct. And I believe I haven't found any document. The current owner I discussed with about a year ago, we had two phone numbers and an email on file, which he would communicate with us. Now all three of those are disconnected, the phone lines and the email. It was an older gentleman. I'm not sure if he's moved out of town or passed away yet, but we haven't had any contact with him for quite some time.
Is he a Groseal resident?
I don't believe so. I believe he was a Taylor resident at the time.
Okay.
But we do have we have a tenant that's moved into this hangar and it's standing up on its nose in the back currently. So we'd like to get it out of the current tenant's hangar, and it seems to be the best way to do it. We did take this to the township board at their last meeting, and they approved it. So this is kind of just coming back to you for your support because we weren't able to meet last month.
Any idea what the value of this might be?
Well, we recently learned one of the other tenants or personnel on the field has, I was unaware of this, but the other personnel has the engine for the plane, which will increase the value of it. It appears to be in good shape. The story behind it, I'm told, it just had a hard landing here and scared the owner, so he just put it back in the hangar and hadn't touched it since. So I'm not aware of the value of it. I think what we'll do is we'll publish an open bid and go on the forums and special interest groups and send it out to them and see what we get.
Okay. Not very much. No.
Mike, this was reviewed by the township attorney, right?
Yes, we're going to go for final review. That's the one question I have to get resolved right now is it is a registered aircraft. It does have an N number on it. So I need our attorney to review how, once we dispose of it, we would transfer that N number. So that's the last thing I need to discuss with our attorney.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rathel.
There's nobody, Mike, on the airfield that knows who the guy is. I mean, these guys are pretty close and know each other well, so...
Correct. There's several tenants that are aware of the man, but when I've asked, they said they haven't had contact with him in a long time as well.
Carl, nobody...
I know what it is. There's not a whole lot of value in this aircraft.
But we've asked tenants and pilots...
Correct, yes.
And no one knows who he is or where he went.
Nope. The couple that do know him, I've asked for double-checked their phone numbers. They've got the same phone numbers in their cell phones and on file for them that we do, and they're all disconnected.
And after he left, did we have contact with him at all?
I had contact with him last year.
And what did he say about the plane at that point?
Well, originally he asked if he could put it out on tie-down in the ramp, which I was not in favor of because I was worried we'd end up with a similar situation to what we have right now with the one plane on tie-down. I asked him to remove it from the hangar. We sent him a letter following up with that, and nothing got done. So.
And that was a year ago that you had contact with him?
Correct. That was the last contact we've had. We've sent several letters notifying after that and attempted phone calls numerous times, but no return.
Question, does he owe us any rent?
Depends if you want to count rent for the hangar for when the aircraft was abandoned there. You know, if you want to count the storage of the plane in the hangar while it was abandoned for a year and a half or 2 years, then yes, he would owe us rent.
Did he have a lease?
He did have a lease. He had another aircraft in there that he moved out at the time and left that one in there. So we could assess back rent for the aircraft being in the hangar.
Did he complete his lease?
He vacated the hangar with the one aircraft that was in there, leaving this one behind.
But did he have a lease for a certain time from?
No, the RT hangar leases are rolling month-to-month leases.
Okay.
Okay.
But did he give notice when he left?
That I don't remember. I'd have to go back and check in the files.
All right. Well, after hearing all this, I'm in favor of us putting it out for auction. I don't want to just destroy the plane. Someone's going to want it somewhere. Who has the engine? Is that public knowledge or not really?
Steve Payon on the field currently has the engine, so we need to get it from him. He was willing to release it to us, and then we can just put it up for auction and see what we get.
Oh, so it's not his engine. It's
The owner.
it's the owner's.
Correct.
Carl, you want to buy it? Let's make a deal right now.
Not even for $5 though.
How about a dollar bill? No? Oh, man.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Rathel, supported by Mr. Stoll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is item number 7C, which is the Campo Brothers Hangar 2 office space lease. And we have a resolution in front of us that reads, based on the recommendations from the airport manager, the Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby recommends to the Groseal Township Board the authorization of a lease agreement for 155 square feet office space on the second floor of the south side of Hangar 2 to the Campo Brothers, Inc.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we need to correct that. I apologize. We don't need to recommend this to the Township Board. It would just be Groseal Airport Commerce Park Commission hereby authorizes a lease agreement.
Okay, we will change that resolution to read as stipulated.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Van Oz. Support by Mr. Mans. Under discussion? Mike, anything to add other than what's already been written in the background? And I see we have a map showing us where it's at.
Correct. Just a small office on the second floor upstairs. It is a month-to-month lease. The tenant originally requested a month-to-month lease, was willing to do a one-year lease. There's two reasons I'm leaving it month-to-month. The one is the current person we have interested in the FBO requested while we negotiate that we don't sign any leases without their approval. This is kind of an easy way to do it until we finish negotiating. The second is this kind of leaves us a little more wiggle room if we have a larger tenant come in and need more office space. That way we don't kind of have odd offices scattered all over the place. We have an option to open it up with a month-to-month lease.
And the tenant's fine with the month-to-month?
Correct. And the tenant is also currently rents the storage yard from us here on the airport side of the properties. This is just the son of the owner.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rathel.
Mike, does Campo Brothers do any work for the airport or the township?
Correct, both.
Both. And there's invoices going back and forth?
Yes.
Our invoices to them and their invoices to us? And those invoices that come from the township to Campo Brothers, do they come from different departments within the township, or is it just one department?
The only invoices that they would get that I'm aware of from the township would be for rental properties, which would be through us. So just one would be the airport and Commerce Park.
And any other work they do for the township outside of the airport, would they get an invoice from another department?
DPS, yep. They'd send invoices.
So theoretically, invoices could be going back and forth, and at any given time, they could owe the township money or we could owe them money.
Correct.
Is it very clear that this lease has nothing to do with that, and no matter how much the township owes them, at any given month, that $167.92 will be paid to the airport on time?
Correct.
Clear?
Clear.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on the Campo Brother lease? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Van Oz, supported by Mr. Mans. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is item number 8, which is our subcommittee reports. We have none. Any discussion items? Anybody have any discussion items? Moving on to item number 10, which is the chairman's report. I have nothing new to report. We will move on to item number 11, which is the public comment. Yes, sir. If you want to approach the microphone and state your name and address.
Good evening, gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. My name is Henry Greck. I'm a property owner at 10355 Stinson Circle. I'm here tonight to just ask you to consider the issues of who you rent the airport facilities to and the activities that are taking place there. I heard a couple comments with regard to this a little bit earlier. My main complaint was the use of the airport for fast track, high-powered race vehicles that were running through there. They started early in the morning. I'm not sure exactly what time, but it was early in the morning on a Sunday, and they went through about 8 o'clock in the evening, 8 p.m. The very next morning, with my ears still ringing, I came in and spoke with Mike, and told him that I was less than impressed with all the noise there. I also told him and another member of the board who I just happened to meet outside, Mr. Rethel, that I certainly didn't mind the fast track or anything else occurring during Grosse Ile Days, which is I know an annual event, and I know it takes place over a period of 3 days typically. This is an event that is for and by the community. Community participates. That doesn't really occur with the race cars, and that noise is deafening all day long. Cars running through gears. I've spoken to 4 of my neighbors. They pretty much felt the same way. In fact, a couple of them approached me. So I understand your situation. You're trying to make ends meet here at the airport and doing what you can to make it viable and everything else. But I would just like this board to reassess its decisions with respect to noise levels. The last thing I will say is that I was told this evening that the Michigan Jets, which I didn't have a huge problem with, although it's another source of noise, and it's also on a weekend, and it's also pretty much all day long. We're also basically I understand that event's been taking place for a number of years, but I guess in recent years, or at least this year, more and more Michigan Jetters are appearing on site, and so that the group is growing. The last thing we heard before nodding off to sleep while in bed that night was fireworks going off by this group of people. So maybe we can caution them against that, perhaps. But in any event, the Jets, assuming that that's a once-a-year event, I understand, is what I heard here this evening, that it's strictly a once-a-year event.
That's correct.
I guess I can live with that and not be a complainant on that too vigorously. But with respect to the fast-track race cars, that's just something that can't be allowed to go on. When I question how often that event takes place, I got a couple times, I asked Mike what a couple times meant. The answer to me, maybe it was my interpretation, but it was nebulous. So I don't know how many events per year that this is going to allow to take place, but I would just ask you to consider the fact that whatever revenue that we could possibly bring in from leasing the airport facility for something like that is going to be more than offset by, in my mind, and I'm an ex-real estate guy, the devaluation of property in the area, because I bought my home about a year and a quarter ago. I had I rented a home on Grosse Ile for 4 years prior to that, but I bought my home here about a year and a quarter ago, and I got to tell you, if I thought that I was moving next door to an amusement park with the Jets and a racetrack with the fast track deal, I would not have purchased my home there. So I just ask you to consider that, and I know there's been other other neighbors of mine that have spoken out already. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, and we will take that under advisement. Thank you.
Sir.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
I have a question. Mike, let's clarify the amount of times that Fast Track is allowed to use the facility and how many times have they used it in the past?
This year, these were the 2 events we allowed them during Island Fest, which you referred to, and the one Sunday event. That's it. We don't have anything else on the books with Fast Track for the summer. Last year, I'm trying to remember, I believe we did 3 events with them last year, so we're down 1 this year. We did do an event on a Sunday last summer around the same time frame. But when I looked into it further, I remember we had some pavement heaves at that time, so we did run a different route around the airport, which I think brought the noise further away from the residents on that side of the airport. But at the same time, it closed down the part of the primary runway, so we don't want to do that anymore. So that's just something I think we need to get with the Airport Advisory Committee, and we'll review and come back with a future recommendation. But this summer, we do not have any further planned events on the runways that would generate noise other than airplanes and helicopters. So.
And then what's the financial benefit of having Fast Track? Have we had an accounting of the 2 events that we've had?
We received, for a single day, it's $2,500 to the airport. He will be assessed for the 2 hours we went over on the time. And then I'm trying to remember the number we assessed for Island Fest. I believe it was $3,500, if I remember right.
So roughly a little under $6,000 then. Correct. For the 2 events.
I have a question, if I may.
Mr. Stoll.
To the gentleman who was speaking.
Yes, sir.
How do you compare the noise of that to jets and airplanes landing, other airplanes landing on there?
Well, obviously I knew when I moved here that there was a small airport, typically single-engine planes, which come down within a matter of seconds, land, and that's the end of it. All right? Occasionally one will take off. Occasionally one will land. They make basically a soft purring sound, if you will, in my estimation. That's vastly different than the sound of people running high-powered vehicles running through gears all day long. And it didn't go to 6:30 at night, Mike. It went beyond that.
Till about 7 is when we ended.
Yeah, well, I would estimate it closer to 8, according to myself and at least one other neighbor that complained to me. So it's a horrendous noise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm kind of surprised that we only get the 1 complaint so far, because I can hear them at my house, and it's a mile and a half away. And it is an all-day event. I live on the other side of Alba, and I can hear them there all day long. It just runs contagiously.
Do you mind?
He did indicate he is representing a few other people, though, too.
Yeah. Are you? Did you make the statement that you're surprised that there was only 1 complaint, meaning me? I happen to know that one individual went to the township supervisor's home and complained.
That's valid.
And if it continues, I will go around the whole neighborhood and get a petition signed.
No, I wasn't trying to make light of it. I just, because I can hear it at my house, and I thought during the day that...
But you enjoy the sound?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm a mile and a half away, too. I don't hear it like you hear it right here.
That's quite a distance. And yet you could hear it. Well, from over there, it sounds like you're at, remember the old days at Sibley and Dix? Mm-hmm. Because I grew up in that era. That's what it sounded like all day long.
Okay.
What did the supervisor say? He lives pretty close.
I don't know. I have not spoken to the supervisor.
Well, that's a good place to go to. If,
Does he have a pool?
I think he has hot dogs, and so he'll feed you if you.
Thank you, John.
No, I just want to make a comment. And I certainly don't think that anyone's taken light of this. We have a charter here to be financially self-sustaining. However, in our mission, we also have to be good stewards of the neighborhood. So we live by being good neighbors. And the way that we know we're being good neighbors is people like yourself come and say, hey, that, cross the line, can you guys take a look at it and reevaluate it? So
I'll tell you God's honest, Mr. Is it
Rathel?
Rathel.
Yeah.
The jets really didn't bother me that much. I thought they were kind of neat, tell you the truth. And if that happens once or twice a year, personally, I could live with that. Those cars are a whole different issue. Those cars make a horrendous noise shifting through those gears all day long.
The structure that we have, and certainly coming here tonight was valid, okay? But we have an aviation advisory committee that looks at how things impact the airport from an aviation standpoint, and then also from a community relations standpoint. We have a representative in the audience here behind you, and I know that this will be talked about and brought back. And the reality of it is you probably have more people than just a couple of your neighbors shaking their head in agreement with you that are active around the airport. But it does have to be looked at again and see what the real net benefit is, or is it a liability?
I would also quantify my complaint one other way. I have no objection, as I thought I made it clear before, I have no objection with that noise factor taking place during Island Fest days. That's a 3-day event. Everyone knows it's coming. It's a community organized event.
Yeah.
It's an event in which all many members of the community participate in and look forward to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not my issue. But when this stuff starts happening off of those 3 days, then, you couldn't go outside that day.
Yeah, it's received and noted, and
so I just
thank you for it.
Would
We
appreciate
will pass your comments on to the advisory board, and Mike and Carl, if you make sure that message gets back to them, and we'll get them to get involved and look at that. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you, Henry. It will be addressed.
Thank you, sir.
any other public comment? Hearing none, seeing none. The next item on the agenda is to adjourn. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rathel. Support by Mr. Fulbaum to adjourn at 7:50. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries.